2. Here we go, OddCast number 7. Good morning, Colin Solomon.
Good afternoon and good evening, because I know the fans include people in the former colonies where we used to send prisoners, but we don't do that anymore.
No, thankfully.
The individuals concerned in those particular countries know that was for them. Hello, Luke. Colin, I saw something today which relates to an item you commented on in OddCast 6, and I'm going to ask that we put it in the link in the comments, because the BBC are reporting on the missing Romanian who was behind some crypto coin disappearance. And I'd like to think that, as you mentioned that last week, the BBC could give us credit for deciding to run that story.
Very good. Yeah, I think they should. It is an interesting one for sure, and it's one of them sort of mystery sort of type thing, and gets a lot of interest. But I mean, yeah, following with interest is probably a word I would use, or a phrase I'd use. But it's a.
Can I say there are victims who will have had money disappear. Now, they might have been crypto virgins. That's not a phrase you hear very often. And they might not have understood all of the risks of what they were being engaging in as an investment. They might have been suffering FOMO, Bitcoin's going up, I must buy some, I must buy some. But without appreciating the risks, it's always a risk. My second observation, Colin, and you know this to be true, I've read your book. And one of the things that strikes me from your book is quite how varied and serious your career has been. And I know from chatting to you over the weekend, that's something you want to talk about now. So over to you.
Yeah, I as you know, I worked in child protection in the 90s, 95 to 99. Some of the most rewarding, but also harrowing sort of parts of my career. And hats off to anybody that continues to work in that particular field now, because what I'm about to talk about, I suppose, has an implications for the internet. But the internet wasn't really a thing then. It was just beginning. It wasn't really sort of in vogue in terms of public access. It was just beginning to sort of kick in. But now it will have blown out of all proportion. But no, I don't know if anybody's watched this. I don't know if you've watched it yet, but there's a film that's available called Sound of Freedom.
I'm going to say I've only watched it because you flagged it for me, and I watched it holding my breath.
Yeah, it's harrowing. It took me back actually to the times when I was in the police investigating child protection and child abuse rather, but it's an angle that I think is very, very relevant to compliance and AML compliance, because I mean, the story, I'm not going to spoil the film for anybody to watch it. I would recommend that anybody who works in compliance should watch this film, right? Or even if you're a parent, you should watch the film, because it's scary. But just from it's all about, it starts as a guy called Tim Ballard, who's quite a controversial character if you look at some of the stuff online, but put that aside a minute. He was a federal agent investigating human trafficking. And the film, you'd have to watch the film to find out what it's all about. But just because we're on a short call, $150 billion annually, human trafficking.
Can I say that's victims being turned into a commodity, being turned into underpaid labor, slave labor, child exploitation.
Yeah.
It's just unspeakable. And we live in our northern hemisphere, you and I, gilded existence, have been born into the wealthiest time of our generation. And we have no idea, I don't think, what's happening elsewhere in the world. And I think as a parent, as a grandparent, as somebody in compliance, we need to understand and appreciate that it happens, that there are risks. And when it comes to working in the financial industry, then let's be aware that that money is going somewhere, and it's not likely to be passing through my neighborhood local bank, but it's going through the banking system somewhere. in the same way that the Iranians are allegedly using a bank in Hamburg. But I'm not in any laughing mood about this whatsoever.
No, that was exactly the point I was going to make, that, you know, the money has got to be moving through financial systems somewhere. Now,
is it moving through crypto, Colin?
well, quite possibly, you know, it's but 49 million people in modern slavery, 35% of them are children. And that a lot of those kids are being moved around for the benefit of those that engage in predatory activity against kids, and that's not acceptable. I don't, you know, I don't care what anybody says. There is no excuse for this. We often think of sort of money laundering in terms of drugs and fraud, and clearly that is an issue. But you know, it's about time we woke up to this big time.
I think you're right, Colin, because there is sometimes this logic in our head, which is somebody's getting away with tax evasion. Oh, what a cheeky chappy! What a scandal! Yeah, exactly. What a member of the House of Lords! Yeah. But in reality, there are real victims, and in compliance, and as good members of society, we should stand up and try and do something about that. So yeah. I'm conscious of time, because the fans' attention span is increasingly declining with his and her age, as is ours. So ordinarily there's a joke, Colin. As in, there is a joke, comma, Colin, not that one of us is a joke. Today it's my turn for the joke, and whilst I have 2 or 3 which are truly appalling and fail to meet the joke due diligence rules, I'm not going to offer one, because I think we should sign off. You and I were saying we recommend you watch the video. There'll be a link in the clip. We recommend you follow the BBC story about the crypto queen and the missing money.
Yeah,
and that's probably enough from me. Yeah,
I think this is about people making money out of misery, and you know, that it's just. I watched the film. I tell you one thing I don't know if he watches this, but there's a guy called Steve Farrer who I know, who is a specialist in this sort of area. I'd love to know his views on this side of things, because I'm sure he can add some real weight to that, and Steve knows his stuff. So I'm going to tag him into the comments. But no, it's not appropriate for a joke today, because none of this is remotely funny. Yeah, it's serious stuff, and it's about.
So at that point, do we say thank you very much to everybody who's taken the time and trouble to find us, to watch us? Please comment, please contribute. Today you don't need to criticize us for the joke, but do let us know if you're enjoying what we're doing, if enjoyment is the right word.
Definitely.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much, everybody.